This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
This half hour brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory, great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. Terrific service department, quick lane inspections, routine, difficult. They handle it all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. It is always a pleasure to talk with my good friend Mike DeCourcy from Sporting News and BTN Fox. Welcome, sir. Great to have you back.
How are you today, Steve?
Doing well. Doing just fine. You've written a series of very interesting articles. I want to go to one that's not football, basketball related. I thought you wrote a fascinating article on why Major League Baseball should consider a cap after the dust-up between Rob Manfred and Bryce Harper, and, of course, the comments of Tony Clark. Why do you think baseball is falling behind certain other leagues because they don't have a cap/floor, and how could the players actually benefit from it?
Yeah, well, there are two separate issues, and the interesting thing is that when this issue is framed too often in the media, it's the salary cap concept is framed as a constraint on the players. And in reality, in every sport that that has adopted one, and that is every sport, every major men's sport in America, save one, has a salary cap system. It elevates the players as a group. Does it elevate specific players like Bryce Harper or Shohei Ohtani? No, it doesn't. But it elevates the players as a group, that they get a better deal because the owners in those sports have to pay a certain amount of money based on the percentages of the revenues that are generated. They have no choice. If you're an NFL owner, you have to pay a certain amount of money, and usually the cap is at one figure, and the floor is at a figure somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 20% below. And that's it. You can't go below that. Now, in Major League Baseball, you could pay 26 players $760,000, and you would have a Major League Baseball team.
Yep.
That's the reality. That's your only minimum, is you have to pay the Major League minimum for 26 players. And in some cases, we've seen teams flirt with that. And so what you have is, in Major League Baseball, the players make a smaller percentage of the revenue generated than in other sports. And I pointed out some specific examples of how players are taken advantage of in these systems, like the Cincinnati Reds' Ellie De La Cruz, who's making the same money as his double play partner, Matt McClain, and one of them has played in 2 All-Star games, and the other guy at the time I wrote was hitting .210. Yeah. They're just not comparable players, but this is Major League Baseball, and you can only make so much if you're a third-year guy. There were, at the time I wrote, and this was right around the All-Star break, so this was all based on the active current rosters at that point, there were 50% of the players in the league that were making less than $1 million a year. In the NBA, you can't play a full season and make less than $1 million a year because their minimum is over $1 million. Those 50% of players were making less than, I can't remember the guy's name because he's kind of forgettable, a defenseman for the I believe it was the San Jose Sharks, who was making $1 million and change. And he was a 23-year-old defenseman on the worst defensive team in the NHL, and he was a minus something. And half of Major League Baseball players were making less than him. More than a third, are making less than the National Hockey League minimum. There is less than half as much money in hockey as there is in baseball, and yet a third of Major League Baseball players are making less than the NHL minimum salary. It's an absurd situation, and it's not fair to the players. So that's the one side. And then there's the other side, wherein so many markets in Major League Baseball have effectively been divorced from the competition.
Oh,
Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Baltimore. Every now and then they get good enough. It's been a very rare circumstance that they get good enough to even think about, could we do this? Could we be in the series? Could we win it? It's very rare that happens. And the best example that I can give you of that is that we've had in the 21st century, I think we've had 25 World Series at this point, and 22 of them have been won by teams from the top 15 markets, and 3 have been won by teams outside those markets, 2 by St. Louis and 1 by Kansas City. Right. That's 22 out of 25. In the NFL, there have been more from outside the top 15, 13 of them, than inside, 12. Right. So it just shows you right away, salary cap makes it a competition based on how shrewd you are, how effective you are, how smart you are, how you execute, and how your players perform. And in baseball, it's who's got the most money, most revenue, all of that, and that's how it works. And so a lot of people who were very intense baseball fans have just kind of given up on it, because it's not their game anymore. It belongs to New York and L.A. and occasionally occasionally Philly or Dallas or Houston, and the rest of the country is not really theirs.
Right. Another good one was the story about the AP poll came out, and as you point out, it's an absurd concept that a team's final college football playoff ranking is affected by this. Last year showed that's not true at all because of the way it played out. I mean, and that's a fact in all this.
Yeah, there were some people during conference media days last month who were talking about the concept of banning preseason polls, and right away, and some of the people that were doing this were people in our industry, and I'm like, do you realize what you're saying here? Yeah. Because you're telling the Associated Press what they can publish, and USA Today as well. You're telling them what they can publish, and that makes no sense at all. You can't tell the Associated Press they can't have a poll of football about what football teams are good or not. I'm not a fan of the poll, Steve. I made that really clear in my writing and social media over the years.
Yes,
but I defend their right to put it out there if broadcasters and writers are willing to participate, then fine. If coaches are willing to participate, then USA Today has something to publish. And if coaches all of a sudden said, we're not doing it anymore, then they have the right to do that. If the AFCA got together and said, we're not doing this, we're never voting until late in the season, USA Today would figure out who else to poll then, and they would do somebody else and have that be their rankings. Maybe they'd poll all the top TV analysts or something. I don't know. But you can't tell them what they can publish. And I thought it was important as the first preseason AP poll came out to put that out there and remind people that the drive to do this, and the Kansas State coach was advocating for this, said that they've talked about it, the Coaches Association. He doesn't think they'll get it done now, but no, you're not getting it done now. You're not ever getting it done. Right. You may, as I said, as an association, decide you're not involved anymore. That's up to you. But the USA Today will find somebody else to fill your void.
Well, to me, the AP and the coaches polls, which have nothing to do with the college football playoff rankings or determining a national champion anymore, are to me nice promotional vehicles for the game. 11th ranked Iowa State's going to play 18th ranked Kansas State in week 0. Putting in assigning a number to it. I mean, you know me, Mike. Do you think I'm even going to mention at all during the course of the broadcast with Nevada that Penn State's ranked number 2? I mean, darn well.
You might discuss what the pressure or responsibility that it conveys to be ranked that high. And I may also point out that the last two Big Ten teams, as a matter of fact, that began the season at number 2 won the national championship. So not a bad spot for the Nittany Lions to be in. But I don't think that I know you're not going to go on and say that it's obvious that they've accomplished this and that it means that they're bound for the championship game.
I mean, the only time it would possibly even come up is if we're asked about it in the pregame show by a fan on the show. Other than that, to me, it's game 1, and can you be one of the 12 at the end?
Yes.
I've talked about this a few times, and I want to get your opinion on this. College basketball, not perfect, as you and I both know, and you and I know that better than anybody. But they've done some things that have been established over the years that work that I don't understand why college football doesn't adopt. Now, 1 through 68. Now, last year, college football, now they're going to change and go 1 through 12. So they've at least made the change there. But like an early signing period, the early signing period is the second Wednesday in November, and after that, coaches can coach their teams while still doing some recruiting. College football doesn't do that. Why doesn't college football look at the college basketball model and certain things and say, you know what, that's got a 30-year track record, well, how about we try that?
I think they're trying to protect themselves, Steve, partly from evaluation mistakes, but perhaps even more so from injury issues. If you like the quarterback at Elizabeth Forward, say, and you offer him a scholarship, but then something happens to him injury-wise that diminishes him a little bit, then what do you do then? You're kind of half stuck if he's already signed, and you don't want to look like the bad guy, but he may not be good enough now for you. I mean, that sort of thing is a possibility in college sports, in all sports. And when you draft in the NFL, you're drafting in April after they've played all the football games they'll play prior to working for you. But if you sign somebody in, let's make the early signing period in August, and then a young man goes out and plays a full football season, there are injury risks that may or may not lead to that player being less capable of performing at whatever level you exist, whether it's the MAC or whether it's the Big Ten. And I think that's why college football in particular has been resistant to the concept.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why they're resistant to it, but there's risk in anything.
But a little bit more in football, honestly. Yeah. It's the nature of the sport. It's a little bit more in football than it is in pretty much any other sport, and I think that there's a feeling that they just don't want to get caught in that. And I think as much as anything, they don't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
It would be a really bad PR thing for them if they had to cut loose, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 players that they'd signed early and that were, obviously already very well publicized as members of your recruiting class.
Opening week, week 0 is coming up, and then the opening week of the season will be that, week 1. I don't know why you just don't make it week 1, but that's me. We're going to make it week 0. Like, okay, great. What are a couple of things that you're just at least looking for out of the gate that interest you?
Well, I think that one of the things that interests me is the fact that you have so many teams now deciding that they're going to go easy. I mean, there are a few out there. There's the Texas-Ohio State game. There's the LSU-Clemson game, but it's really rare. And a lot of teams have decided they're just not even going to – they're just going to get ready for conference now. And I think that's bad for the sport. I wish that at some point – I mean, they had 10 years, and, of course, they have had now 1 year of a real playoff, but they had 10 years of the pre-playoff, let's call it, system, where they could have said, look, we're going to pay attention to who you play. And if you go out and you beat somebody good out of your league, we're going to notice and we're going to reward that. I've always objected to that to an extent in college basketball because there's so many different ways to build a team in basketball, and there's so much conference play. But I think college football needs it because the data is so poor. Because there's so little intersection between the Big Ten and SEC and the Big Ten and the ACC and the SEC and the ACC in football, because there's so little, it really waters down all the data that you see out there. It's not super valid. I mean, it may help you in the gambling markets. I can't say, but in terms of really establishing who is and who isn't good, I just don't place any value in it at all because there's just not enough intersection among the power leagues to really know. Should you really base how good a team or a league is on how badly they beat the MAC or the Mountain West or whichever league? Or in the SEC just loved to play the Sun Belt last year. I mean, they had a zillion games against them. So it really it's really hard to get a handle on that, and I would like to see more games between power leagues so that when we get to the end of the season, we really know is the SEC the best league or is it the Big Ten or whoever? Yeah. We don't know by the time we get to the end of that. We only get an idea once they start playing postseason games.
Quickly, Mike, because Tony Petitti has put out his idea as to how he thinks a 16-team college football playoff should work in terms of invitation. It looked like the SEC was on board with it. Then they went through their league meetings, and now they want to see 5 plus 11. What's your opinion on what? Because Tony's a TV guy.
Yeah.
And this is, in my opinion, it's a TV proposal, especially when it comes to Big Ten championship weekend. What's your opinion on that, and could it possibly drive it toward what you talked about with better non-conference matchups because you don't have as much risk?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that if you're going to do it the way Tony wants to do it, the valid way would be if you were able to establish a formula. They do this in European soccer.
Yes.
Why does England get X number of bids to the Champions League and Scotland gets X minus. So I think that if you could do that, then I think that it would be fair to do it that way.
Yeah.
To just assume based on history or wealth or whatever concept you're investing in this, that the SEC and the Big Ten would get automatically 4 and the others would get automatically 2, et cetera. I think you can defend that if you're going into that system, but I would feel better about it if there were a formula that said that if the ACC ever found a way to put the 10 of the best teams on the football fields, that they could earn their way into another bid or take one away from Big Ten or SEC or whoever. I think I'd feel better about it. I understand the value that there would be in those playoff games. They would be compelling television. But what I like about the current system, and we saw it play out last year, is how many more games it turned into de facto playoff games.
Yes.
I was riveted by Georgia Tech, Georgia last year.
Me too.
Ole Miss, Florida. I was riveted by those games. Auburn, I think it was A&M. And I wouldn't have paid any attention at all to those games in prior years because I would have known I'm not a bettor. And I would have known they meant nothing to the national championship, but getting in meant a lot to those teams. And of course, all three of the contenders in those games lost, or 2 of the 3 lost, and Georgia prevailed and was able to get a bid as a result.
Mike, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to cross paths with you soon.
Me too, Steve. Always a pleasure.
The outstanding Mike DeCourcy, Sporting News, BTN, Fox. We always think about Mike and what he does with basketball because he's absolutely one of the best at it, but he's just great all around in talking about it. All right. This half hour brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. And online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory. Great pre-owned inventory with the all-important Sunbury Motors guarantee. Terrific service department. Quick lane inspections routine, difficult. They handle it all. At Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online on sunburymotors.com on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.
Summer's winding down, but the deals are heating up at Sunbury Motors Ford on North 4th Street in Sunbury. Get back to school in style. Save up to $6,800 on the fuel-efficient 2025 Ford Escape. Now priced as low as $24,975. Great for the morning carpool, but hurry, only a few left. Need more room for backpacks and gear? From 46 new Ford Explorers, slashed up to $6,200, starting at just $36,935. Or go big with America's favorite, over 60 new 2025 Ford F-150s, discounted up to $13,000, now starting at $45,544. And yes, 0% financing is available on many models. Race in the fall at Sunbury Motors Ford, North 4th Street in Sunbury, or visit sunburymotors.com.